Hey guys, I want to talk real quick about the David Icke, Brian Rose, London Real situation. Their interview just got taken off YouTube, banned from YouTube, and I want to give my take on it. My channel has obviously fought battles of free speech in the past, not with YouTube, but with private individuals over what I could say, what I couldn't say. So I have a strong opinion on this matter. I thought I'd give it to you guys first before I make a separate video where I basically explain why I think the David Icke London Real interview was an absolute garbage fest of misinformation and dangerous ideas that were totally left unchallenged by Brian Rose.
Is there a virus?
There is no COVID-19. It doesn't exist.
So I think the interview was a complete failure, but YouTube's reaction to shutting it down, I have a totally different take on it, and I think it distracts from how bad the interview was and how stupid the interview was. Because it's now become a free speech issue, right? Because it's been censored. Yeah, it's been censored. They don't want you to know the truth. And my take on this is that YouTube shouldn't have done it. YouTube, for two reasons. For one, for pragmatic reasons. Two, philosophical reasons. I disagree with it. But I understand YouTube's perspective, and I think a lot of people are missing YouTube's perspective on the whole thing. They don't understand, hey, why is YouTube suddenly banning this guy? All they hear is about the banning, and they don't know the wider context of the situation. So let me give you that wider context real quick. So the reason YouTube specifically taking down videos that try to link 5G and coronavirus, the reason for that, the real reason, is that there were arson attacks in Britain of 5G towers by people who believed that there was a link here, right? So some conspiracy theorists, of whom David Icke is one of them, were promoting this idea that 5G was causing the coronavirus, and then people who heard that and believed it said, oh, well, let me go stop 5G, right? Because if 5G is hurting all these people, I'm gonna stop 5G and try to help people. And so they set fire to these towers, which is a huge problem. You can't have your society committing arson attacks based on crackpot theories. And so, somewhat understandably, YouTube is trying to find a way to limit their own liability. They're like, we don't want to be the cause of the spread of these crazy ideas. Okay, that's their perspective. I think a lot of people didn't know that real world violent actions were taken in the real world. Now, to my knowledge, no one was hurt, but people could have been. Let's be clear. When you set fire to something, you don't know whether someone's going to be hurt or not. So real lives have been impacted by the words of these conspiracy theorists, okay? So that's number one, because free speech applies up until it violates someone else's rights. So there is a bit of a question mark of, you know, when you're promoting ideas that cause real world events to take place that could harm people, does your free speech still apply? That's a philosophical question, because obviously David Icke is not telling his followers to go burn 5G towers. Although he sort of dances around the topic, he says he doesn't want violence to be committed against people.
You know, I am personally absolutely anti-violence against people.
But he also says, you know, make of this what you will, 5G will end the world.
And if 5G continues and reaches where they want to take it, human life as we'd known it is over. So what people decide to do about that is up to them.
So there's a question of how much he promotes it, but I think it is on the edge. I mean, I think anyone could see with this context that this is on the edge of speech. But my personal take is that YouTube censoring London Real, censoring David Icke is going to cause more problems than it fixes, because like I said, it turns this into a free speech issue, which really this should be an issue of mocking this nut job for his crazy ideas. Instead it becomes, oh, the big man is trying to censor David Icke. So I think tactically, from YouTube's own reasoning on it, where they don't want this conspiracy spreading to more people, this is failing already. Censorship usually does fail because the Barbra Streisand effect, most people know it. If you try to shut something down, people think that there must be some truth to it and they want to watch it more. So I think YouTube's attempts failed there, just pragmatically. But also philosophically, you have to deal with the fact that when you allow free speech, if you believe in free speech, and you may not agree with me on this topic, doing the work that I do, I have a pretty strong sense of free speech. So I think that unless people like David Icke are outright saying, go commit acts of violence, go do these things, they're largely protected. I mean, it just is what it is. Philosophically, I think they should be allowed to say what they say. And I also am of the belief that places like YouTube, they don't really have a valid competitor in the market. They are kind of a marketplace of ideas. I kind of think YouTube's a public utility. So even though it is a private company, most people say the private company has the right to do whatever it wants. It can censor whoever it wants. I think your platform like YouTube, you have a monopoly. And when you have a monopoly and you're providing video sharing, which is basically, I would argue, a public utility in today's society, I don't think YouTube should have the right to be like, oh yeah, we just don't like you, we don't like what you're saying, and be able to shut them down on that. Unless you can really draw a link between violence and the person, and a clear link, I think if you're like me, if you believe that people should have free speech, you have to accept the fact that some of the people with free speech are crazy, and they're gonna say some crazy stuff. And some people in society are dumb, and they're gonna believe that crazy, dumb stuff. So I think that's just something that I'm coming to grips with. I mean, I just accept that it's a fact of life. People like David Icke exist, and people exist that will believe what David Icke says. So yeah, I just don't think censorship was the right thing here. Tactically, from YouTube's own agenda, like of not wanting more people to commit harm and believe this crazy conspiracy, and also philosophically, I just disagree with that thing. I think David Icke's comments do fall under free speech, even though it's crazy and insane and he's an idiot, right? But it is very much on the edge, and I accept that some of you out there will disagree with me, and that's okay. You can disagree with me because it, like I said, it is that edge case. You know, I don't think you're crazy if you think that his comments fall more on that line of shouting fire in a theater and that free speech doesn't apply. I see where you're coming from. But that's what I wanted to say on that issue. Now, I really wanted to talk about the actual content of the interview, which has been totally hijacked by this free speech conversation. So I'm gonna make a separate video about that. I feel like these are two issues, totally separate. What David Icke actually said on Brian Rose's interview, on the London Real interview, and this free speech question. So that's the free speech part, and I'll see you in the next video for the actual insanity that ensued from this interview.